question that we're all asking is, are there going to be a little more tax, maybe Sops on this side or that side? No, I mean, tax Sops.
Yeah.
Which means that more deductions, greater slabs, somehow, you know, will the finance minister find a way to leave a little more money in our wallets after what inflation is going to do to us over the next couple of months? And that's the question we're asking. So we've got in Pranav Satya, who's a senior tax partner at E&Y, and he's been analyzing what we can and cannot expect from the budget. So let me bring in Pranav. Pranav, thank you so much for joining us right now. Let's talk first about how much room the government has. Do you think that it's possible this government would announce any sort of populist measures when it comes to direct taxation, or is the fiscal deficit really top of mind? Does he not have any room at all?
I do not expect any significant tax swaps on the direct tax front in this particular budget. I think it's time for fiscal consolidation at this stage, and I think their priority, at least for this budget, will be to ensure that the fiscal deficit is under control. There is some amount of discipline, and inflation expectations are properly reined in. So there might be tidbits, but I don't expect any significant tax swaps.
Well, Pranav, obviously the thing that the finance minister has had on top of mind is to encourage long-term savings from retail investors into more productive sectors as opposed to real estate or gold or just sitting in bank accounts, which is what we know that household savings have been doing over the last couple of years. What do you think the finance minister can do within this budget to encourage more of us to move towards equity?
So I think there is certainly a need to direct savings into financial instruments, and you know, really the savings rate in financial instruments has dropped significantly over the last few years. The primary reason for that has been that inflation has eroded people's savings in financial instruments and not much has grown. So I think a large part of it could get addressed by reining in inflation expectations and bringing the fiscal deficit under control. But I think what could still come in terms of tax swaps is for investments in infrastructure, maybe in the form of infrastructure bonds and savings of the type and tax savings of the type we had under Section 80 CCF. What we could also expect probably is some amount of increase in the interest allowable on housing loans and repayment of housing loan benefits or advantages. Some increase in the limits under ATC is all that I would expect. Nothing as dramatic as what has been spoken about over the last couple of weeks.
Well, there is a lot of speculation, Pranav. Now, the real estate industry has made a request to raise the exemption of interest repaid on housing loans under Section 24B of the Income Tax Act. Now, we know that this government has been fairly bullish when it comes to property, when it comes to housing. They've talked about a home for every Indian before the 75th year anniversary of our independence. That is a looming deadline. How do you think they're going to make that happen? Is it likely that we'll see better taxation benefits on home loans, or is there more there for the lowest income?
I would feel that's something which could certainly come because it has multiple advantages. One, it gives the housing sector, the construction real estate sector a boost. Second, it does fulfill the objective of ensuring that every Indian very soon should have a home of his own. And third, there is some amount of merit in trying to ensure that savings are really diverted for a home of one's own. But I do not think it will be still very open-ended. There will be a tempered increase in the interest allowable on housing loans.
Well, do you expect to hear any sort of announcement about the DTC at this point? We've been talking about it for over 5 years. Is there a possibility that we'll at least hear an announcement of a roadmap for the DTC?
Oh, well, I do not think there is going to be any roadmap for DTC. I would feel that most of what DTC had, which was really transformational or very different, has found its way in some form of shape in the current income tax regime. There's nothing much really that is there in the DTC now. If at all one wants to make a real definitive shift, one has to go back to the drawing board and try and think of how to come about with a more simplified version of the income tax law. But I do not think the DTC is going to be a major attraction in this budget.